I like them, but they don't like me. Because I say, like, you know, sexually aggressive things about Prince Harry. Like, I call him the Duke of I Just Cambridge, even though I know that's not historically accurate. That's not his title, but. Hello, I'm Katherine Ryan, and today I'm taking your questions about The Crown on Netflix and taking them to the delightful Professor Kate Williams, author, historian, genius. She's got all the answers. I want to know about Margaret. It's not a particularly spicy name. You wouldn't hear, oh, Margaret. You wouldn't believe what she got up to.
So Margaret's tour of the US was absolutely a bombshell. I love the way the episode is called Margaretology, because the US fell in love with her. So she went to Hollywood, met Hitchcock, met Judy Garland, and then she goes to New York, and then she goes to Washington. And that's where she meets the president, Lyndon Johnson and Mrs. Johnson.
Margaret was telling rude limericks. I get up to that. I'm telling rude limericks in the pub now and then, but not to the president.
They found her vagina in North Carolina.
And her arsehole in Buckingham Palace.
Lyndon Johnson was completely captivated by Margaret. They danced till 1:40 in the morning. Now, we don't know exactly whether or not she was doing those naughty lyrics about what ended up in Arizona or Buckingham Palace, but it is very like Margaret. She was very risque.
Did she bang him?
Well, it was his wedding anniversary. His 32nd wedding anniversary with Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
So,
do you think she kissed him?
They did obviously kiss on the cheek. I don't know whether they went in for a full-blown
shag.
You know, expression of, you know, transatlantic relations in that way.
I hope not, because right now I think Obama's the only one who's never cheated on his wife. So do you think she was like the Prince Harry of then? The fun one?
The fun one. She was the party animal of the royal family.
The Mariah Carey of the royal family.
The Mariah Carey of the royal family. The diva, going too far. When everyone's saying, let's tighten our belts, here's Margaret.
Untightening belts.
Untightening belt. Yes.
Hope. I hope.
Yeah.
I secretly hope she was getting some.
Blunt was a Cambridge-educated man, a really distant relative of the royal family. And during the war, he was really one of the biggest Russian spies. He passed over a huge amount of information to the Russians. He passed over so much that the Russians, they thought he was actually a triple agent because he was passing over too much stuff.
So it's just crazy to me that they'd rather save face than prosecute someone who gave important information to the Russians.
Such important information. He was actually talking in World War II about the Enigma machine that the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, they made the war 2 years shorter than it was because of their operations. They're heroes. And here was someone at the heart of the British establishment undermining Enigma.
So did he hate Britain?
No, but...
He's just a troublemaker?
He believed in the communist cause. I mean, we haven't really got him exactly saying why. I mean, he said he regretted it later, but...
He regretted getting caught.
He regretted getting caught.
You see, Kate, they all regret getting caught.
It does amaze me, because you think about Lord Haw-Haw, who put out those really silly, he put out these silly broadcasts of, you know, pro-German stuff. No one believed it. And he was executed as a traitor. But Blunt, he just lives a great life in the heart of the establishment. They start talking about a pay rise, and there is a feeling in the public that it's not acceptable, that already people are struggling, that there's not enough money. They're seen as rather expensive, and they're also seen as out of touch.
So it's the wrong time to ask for a pay rise.
It is. Their solution is a documentary called The Royal Family. But the minute it was on, you start to see a lot of concern in the establishment. They think, we've opened the doors. We've opened the doors to the royal family. Prince Philip doing sausages and Charles chatting over the breakfast table. It was too much.
Well, how wrong they were, because the Queen could be Kim Kardashian now. She could have perfumes. She could have a line of shapewear, lip kits,
endorsements,
video games. Why did it go away?
It's now locked in the archives. You can't get it. You and I would have to break in to the film archives to get to watch it.
I'm their boss because I pay tax. So if I want to watch the Queen's reality show, then I should be able to. It's like if people want pictures of me on the tube, I'm like grateful that they want it. So even though I'm in a tracksuit, might be hungover, I'm like, but yeah, I'm on board with the royal family being mysterious. That mystique does enhance their value
The hilarious thing is how smart they all are. Prince Philip's doing the barbecue, they're all just so smart, and the Queen's got the pearls. It's really funny.
Like smartly dressed.
Yes, yes.
I was like, Prince Philip, sure.
Well, the Queen did like Wilson a lot, despite the fact that she was apprehensive. But she and Wilson had this marvelous relationship. She really saw him as very down to earth and someone who'd explain to her what the average man was doing in the street. She let him smoke his pipe in her presence.
Oh, wow.
He was allowed to smoke his pipe during the prime ministerial meetings.
I think the Queen probably smokes.
And you know, he kept a photo of the two of them in his wallet. He absolutely adored her. He thought she was marvelous. And Wilson said, actually, that having a conversation with the Queen was the only serious conversation he could have with someone who wasn't, one, trying to leak it, or two, trying to take his job. She was really very sad when he resigned. So although the Queen is politically neutral, of course, she does have preferences. And Wilson really was a great favourite of hers.
I know Welsh people generally don't like English visitors. I get that vibe. When I do comedy around there, they tell me that the relationship is sometimes a tenuous one.
This is a really rising time of Welsh nationalism and the vision that Wales should be a separate country. One way in which the royal family think and the government think they're going to stop this is by giving them Prince Charles. And of course, you have to remember during the first half of the 20th century that children weren't allowed to speak Welsh in the playground. Welsh language, really, they tried to stamp it out. So in these points, the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, you see Wales fighting back and saying, no, we want independence.
Do you feel like they maybe read the room wrong? Because it seems like, oh, I know how we'll settle the Welsh. We'll give them Prince Charles, something they definitely didn't want.
Exactly, and you know, when you watch the footage of it, Prince Charles is very he's terrified. He's terrified of bombings, and it's a huge weight to put on the shoulders of this very young man. Come and save the Union. Do you know that his Royal Protection Officers were with him? He had to stay in normal accommodation, student accommodation. The Royal Protection Officers were disguised as mature students.
Like in all 90s TV shows. Like everyone in 90210 and Dawson's Creek was like 35.
Charles was desperately in love with Camilla.
Yeah.
She had been in love with Andrew Parker Bowles, and then they split up. And he, aged 31, started going out with the 20-year-old Princess Anne. Sometime later, Camilla starts going out with Charles. But do you know what her chat-up line was?
I'm not wearing any pants. Usually works.
It was, my great-grandmother was your great-great-grandfather's mistress. How about it?
Weird. But saucy. Wait a minute, didn't they have saucy texts leaked or saucy letters at one point? Much later.
A phone conversation.
Yes.
A phone conversation.
So these two were freaks.
He goes away in '73 on naval duty, and then she gets married.
To who now?
To Andrew.
Oh.
The royal family didn't see Camilla as suitable.
I bet they called her Millie. They were like, oh, Millie Shand. You know what Millie gets up to on the weekends. See, this is what happens when you overlook Millie Shand. You go across the pond, and all of a sudden she's Camilla Parker Bowles, bitch. All right, I will compare this to a family from my life. Black China, do you know her?
Yes.
She had a baby with Tyga, King Cairo, and then Tyga left her for Kylie Jenner. And Black China, like a genius, was like, we'll see. And then she had a baby with Kylie's brother, Rob Kardashian. And speaking of heirs and like titles, of all the Kardashian children, Blac Chyna's daughter Dream is the only one whose surname is Kardashian.
Dream
Kardashian.
Oh, they were stayed friends. Mm-hmm. They all stayed friends.
Why are they all friends?
They're all friends.
They're all related and they're all friends. There's no ghosting with the royals because you're like, oh, I hope I never see my ex again. Wait, it's also my cousin. Oh, and she's dating my brother now because there's no one else we're allowed to date.
Would you marry a royal?
No. Do you think a royal would have me?
Yes,
I'm very Millie
definitely.
Shand. What?
No.
With my trash mouth and slutty history?
Princess Margaret starts an affair with Roddy Llewellyn, who is this young, aristocratic landscape gardener.
Why would an aristocrat be a landscape gardener?
He's a creative sort of guy. He wants to do something different.
Good for him. So he's almost rebelling against his rich family by being like, I'll show you, I'm gonna be a gardener.
And he's young, he's sort of finding his feet, doing various things, doing
I think he
landscape
just wants
gardening.
to find himself off his feet, if I can be honest. Because where do you find rich and powerful older women? By being a gardener.
She was very unhappy in her marriage because Snowden, Lord Snowden, her husband, had a lot of affairs. And Lord Snowden got a lot of support, and Margaret really felt as if the family, she said he was very oily with the family, very oily. So she felt excluded. And when Roddy pops up, well, he's really...
a different oily.
It's different. And there was a lot of criticism of Margaret, the public opinion, and also the politicians. They called her a royal parasite. They said, we're all tightening our belts and she's off with a toy boy. And you can imagine prejudice there was about an older woman and a younger man.
Yeah.
You know, it was...
And if I had known that Margaret was that cool before she died, I probably would have made a bigger deal of her death. Every February, I'm gonna have Princess Margaret Day.
Okay.
And it's gonna be February 14th because that's Valentine's Day, and that's just like a commercial holiday that we should better spend it thinking about Prince Margaret.
Can I come?
Yeah.
Great.
It's gonna be on a Caribbean island, and it will be immaculately landscaped. We can have all our bushes trimmed, snog some presidents, smoke it up. I don't smoke, but I'll learn. Thank you, Kate, for joining me in my lavish library. You've answered so many questions and enlightened me about the royal family. I hope you've been enlightened as well. They're pretty cool, especially Margaret.
But I think we should definitely do our Margaret Day.
February 14th.